I'm Vivek Ramaswamy, and I'm running for president of the United States.
The question is, do you actually want to solve the problem? Do you want to complain our way into a national divorce, or do you want a national revival? I'm running to lead a national revival. I think we can actually, this is the funny part about this. If you go unapologetic, all out on that America First agenda and take it further, I think you even unify the country.
Vivek Ramaswamy is perhaps one of the most exceptional candidates to ever run for president in recent times. I'm not sure in the history of the country if he is, but in recent times, over the past 50, 60, 70 years, I can confidently assert that he most certainly is. And none of us should take that for granted. I mean, there are a few presidents who are able to speak to different facets of the country and the culture, which is one of the reasons why I support Vivek, and I'll tell you in a second, and tie them together in a way that is respectful of the foundational basis of American society. And that is one of the main reasons why I'm supporting Vivek for 2024, and why I think you should also consider doing the same. But there are more reasons. So let me talk about my criteria for candidates here. Because a lot of people are one-issue voters. Some people say, why I care about immigration. And while I think a one-issue voter is a very interesting specimen, I don't think that approach is very sustainable, because one-issue voters don't really care about the underlying principles of their position. They merely care about their position and who holds it, and that's about it. They care about the what, and not the why, so to speak, as Vivek would say. And so I care about the why. I care about why do we hold these positions? What are the broader assumptions under our positions that require our scrutiny? And how do those broader presumptions and assumptions influence our outlook on the world and government in general? If more people thought like this, America would not be in the state that it is right now. If more folks thought like this, America would not be in the condition where across college campuses on this country, there are people who are enabled by administration, enabled by law enforcement, who are not doing their jobs to shut down debate in the name of sensitivity, in the name of benevolence, to do evil in the name of benevolence, because so many of us never consider what our positions, what our beliefs, what our worldviews imply. We simply accept what we believe for a very long time, or we accept what makes us feel good. I think anyone who does that is setting themselves up for a very disappointing time, a very disappointing understanding of the world. My criteria is very simple. Does this presidential candidate, number one, have a strong moral foundation? As in, can he tell me why what is right and why what is wrong is wrong? Can he tell me the basis for certain laws, the basis for political organization? Can he tell me what justice means in a way that is not condescending and in a way that is sensible and coherent and coheres with the historical definition given by those who framed our Constitution? So is his moral foundation there? Does he have the correct idea about what the power of government is and what it should be going forward? That's my first quality. Number two, does he embrace, or does she embrace, open debate? If you're going to be a leader, you must be willing to allow yourself to be challenged by those who agree with you and disagree with you. Otherwise, you cannot grow. Otherwise, you will simply be surrounded by yes men who will lead you and the country down a path that we cannot go down, because that would not be a very good path. So does he or she embrace open debate? Three, is he or she willing to go against the sacred cows of our society, to be heterodox in the name, not just of being shocking, but pursuing truth? This goes back to the moral foundation. How do you pursue truth if you don't know truth? You have to have the moral foundation first before you can get to the point where you can be heterodox on the basis of righteousness and not merely efficiency, which so many political candidates are heterodox on the basis of efficiency. Oh, let's get any votes, as opposed to being heterodox on the basis of righteousness. I can keep going on. Four, does this person have a strong appreciation of the Constitution and the principles therein? The Constitution is one thing, that's a document. But the subterranean principles that constitute the Constitution, those are the ideas which literally enable our way of life to exist, which literally enable the moral understanding that is built into the structure of this country. So that is essential. If you're going to govern the government, if you're going to govern the structure meant to preserve those principles, you ought to understand those principles. That's my criteria, largely enough. And Vivek fills every single one of them, bar none. Bar none. As I mentioned, American presidents must understand first principles, and they must understand the philosophy of Americanism. Not only does Vivek understand the philosophy of Americanism, he has gone through great lengths to say that we need to have a national identity in America that clearly defines what it means to be an American, and then assert that over the towers of globalism. There are so many videos of him doing this. I'll give you one.
I believe that we're in the middle of this national identity crisis where if you ask most people my age, really any age in America today, what it means to be an American, you get a blank stare in response. And I think that is a vacuum at the heart of the American soul that creates an opportunity for the GOP to fill it with a vision of American national identity that runs so deep that it dilutes this woke cancer to irrelevance. I believe I understand this more deeply than anybody who's in office or running for office today. And that's why I think I can run for president, to revive the ideals that set this nation into motion, not just in the clouds, but with a specific policy agenda that actually gets the job done.
And so a president like this, who treats the idea of Americanism not merely as a platitude that makes us feel good, that is evocative, but as a fundamental principle of our way of life, as a fundamental principle that distinguishes America from every single other nation in this world, as a fundamental principle which in a way asserts our intellectual heritage going all the way back to 1776, someone who not only entertains that and tries to define that, but also appreciates that, is someone who has done more than most American presidents in the past few decades to increase cultural appreciation of what it means to be an American and to figure out what it means to be an American. Vivek does that. That's a good sign. An American president must recognize the role that politics play, that culture plays in politics. And again, the role that politics should play in society. And that cultural issues deserve cultural responses, not always political ones. Well, Vivek has said numerous times on his podcast and his speeches that he's trying to create a cultural movement. He's trying to bring forth the Ron Paul people and the disenfranchised MAGA people, bring them together to do America First 2.0, to do MAGA 2.0, to essentially have a cultural revival that will then lead this political revival of Americanism in our structures of government. But notice, he does not begin with saying we need to have a political revival, because he understands that the culture is the basis of almost every issue we see pop up inevitably in politics. And someone who understands that is someone who will also respect the fact that government power has limits. That government power has very clear defined limits, not just in the Constitution, but what it can actually physically do to change things, and those limits must also be respected, lest the culture and society suffer more from it. Someone who has that basic acknowledgement, once again, has done more than most American presidents over the past few decades to appreciate the beauty of the American political concept. And speaking of power having limits, Vivek has been very clear about the administrative state, about the managerial state, about the role that these unelected bureaucrats play in governing our government. Sorry for the pun. And he has been very clear to say that this is unacceptable. The fact that the FBI can target people politically and nothing can be done about it is unacceptable. The fact that the CIA and other agencies can just go ahead with our corrupt national security state and do things for years under the guise of secrecy, and then until whistleblowers like Snowden come out and expose it, they then try to downplay what they did. The fact that they can violate the Constitution with impunity is not acceptable. And the fact that they can do all of this kind of stuff under the auspices of government that is built on popular sovereignty, that is built on the consent of the governed, is also not only not acceptable, it is a fundamental threat to the American way of life. Vivek is one of the only candidates right now talking about that. I haven't seen DeSantis talk about that. I haven't seen anyone else talk about it. Vivek's talking about that. And he is putting together a plan to fix it. He said he wants to have a state action files released so that everything in the government has done in collaboration with private partners to infringe upon people's liberty or do illicit things should be exposed so the public would be able to see it. Once again, Vivek is in the right mindset to deal with the realities confronting America right now. But also, speaking of the culture, we should also understand that he is essentially the person who wrote the playbook. He wrote the attack plan, the strategy on how to take on wokeness in society, especially in corporate America, with his book, Woke Inc. And his work has been used by some of the biggest voices in politics to influence their own agendas, of course, with no credit and attribution, as often happens. And the fact that he understands the menace going through America's culture, the menace that does threaten the American way of life, the menace that does indeed threaten the first principles of our nation that are built upon an understanding of objective reality, of natural law against the backdrop of natural rights. The woke political program, which seeks to undermine all of these and take us to this sort of subjectivist hell where intersectional experience and subjective opinion are what matters, not objective truth. He understands not only where this menace is, how it came about, he understands how to fight it. Once again, he is in the right mindset to be president of the United States. And finally, another reason why I support Vivek is because he understands the problem of post-liberalism and how to fight it. Now, post-liberalism is more of an esoteric issue, but it won't be in a few years. It is this idea that America's foundations in classical liberalism and individual freedom and consent and harm-based morality are actually the reason why we have so much cultural degradation and decay in America today. And that we should abandon all of these beliefs. We should abandon America's foundational beliefs in the name of communitarianism, in the name of the common good, in the name of allowing the government to be the arbiter of our lives, the arbiter of what is decent, what is in good taste, the arbiter of what you should be able to reasonably believe and do in public life, whatever that means. But Mr. Ramaswamy understands the importance of individual freedom, the importance of, dealing with issues in a manner that respects critical conversation and what the framers were trying to do. He understands the importance of classical liberalism and how that informs American conservatism. He understands all of the most important things that a true American president must understand. And so I say this, I close with this. If you want a president who understands the cultural issues we face, who understands the fundamental structure of the government and what it should properly be doing, who understands the ideologies of our day that will try to influence policy through nonprofits or through particular lawmakers who are amendable to them, who understand some of the global threats America faces with China and so on and so forth, then you should look very heavily at voting for Mr. Ramaswamy. Not only should you vote for him, you should donate to him. You should support him. I don't do this. Look at my channel. I don't do this normally, but I feel a fire stirring in me because this is a cultural revolution waiting to happen. One that goes back, not revolution, revival, not revolution, revival. One that goes back to foundational universal ideas that work, as opposed to trying to throw us forward into the hells of postmodernism, which work for no one but those who wield the power at that time. Vivek's your candidate, and to be honest with you, I couldn't be happier to say I'm all in for Ramaswamy 2024. My friends, I love you guys so much. Like this video, comment on this video, share this video, subscribe to this channel. I love you guys so much, and please stay pensive. Bye, guys.